We've just got a real treat today, don't we, Boz?
Oh man, I'm grinning ear to ear. One of my very favorite people on the planet, a man who I've been lucky enough to be very good friends with for a very long time now, the one and only David Osorio from CrossFit South Brooklyn.
Hello, hello.
David.
I think we met Adrian in 2009
I thought it was
or
eight,
2000.
but
It might have been
it
late
could have been nine.
2008. We
Yeah.
hosted the very first CrossFit Level 1 in New York State. And Adrian was on the seminar staff, and we became fast friends. And the rest is history.
I was going to say, we've done a bunch of these shows. I've never heard Adrian give such a warm introduction to any of our guests in any way, shape, or form. So there's already a bit of bias creeping in here. But so this is going to turn hostile soon.
100%. Yeah, there's a huge bias.
I did a bunch of L1s out at South Brooklyn, and I always had an absolute blast. And that's really saying something. I'm not a city boy. I get a little claustrophobic in the city. It's not my jam. But when I would get to South Brooklyn and walk in, always had a good experience, man. Good people, good times. And I got some warm memories from there.
I appreciate it.
To pump you up a little bit and kind of extend on that theme, Pat, I would say that, David, one of the things I admire about you and the way that you built your business over the years is that it really is, in my opinion, an extension of you in the best possible way. You walk in there and all of the best things that you are about are, I think, really on display, and it makes it a really memorable place. So that to me is something that I think is really tough to hold on to as you get bigger and as you get more established. I think the tendency is to kind of codify things and make them more routine. And eventually that can kind of suck the culture out of a space, in my opinion. So I think you've done a really commendable job of kind of maintaining that uniqueness over the years.
I appreciate that very much. It's definitely like, my positive and both negative traits probably spill into the space just as well. But I think that's something like that I didn't really, I think, acknowledge for many, many years over the course of my affiliate ownership. And I've certainly come into ownership of that this thing really is an extension of myself, my personality. And I think that's proven by talking to other affiliates and talking to other gym owners and also people who work at gyms. And you realize how much of the culture just goes downstream. Like it really just comes down to the leadership at the top and what the expectations are, what the culture is, how happy people are. There's always, that's the thing that all boils down to is the leadership. So I appreciate that. And, we do what we can.
That kind of dovetails into some of the broad brush things that we're going to talk about today, because if, like you said, Boz, if you feel like some of who David is reflected in his community, his affiliate, the whole nine yards, the reason that you're allowed to do that, David, is because, hopefully, you're part of this affiliate network and not a franchise. And so, in the affiliate network, you actually have the freedom as an independent gym owner to make a whole host of decisions that under a different model, you would not be allowed to express that creativity. But you can, choose or create your own programming, run as many or as few classes you want, groom your coaches in whatever desire that you want, have the culture and community that you want. Use whatever workout tracking, gym management fits your needs or doesn't. Have uniforms, whatever. Like, it's up to you. And that is a really unique and special thing that I hope that we never lose in CrossFit. Like that actual complete autonomy and freedom of basically every single decision. And that's a very precious thing. And you've been able to use that in a way that makes your gym stand out. We're going to dive into some of those unique things that you've had the freedom to create. But maybe for anyone unfamiliar with you or your gym, maybe give us the Reader's Digest version of, who are you? What are you all about? And, the backstories to why the heck would we even want to have you on this show?
Okay, well, yeah, and I agree with that sentiment. I'll try to circle back to that sentiment.
The sentiment about why would we want you on the show? Is that
no about the autonomy that we have as affiliate owners? So super quick, yeah, I'm a 16-year CrossFit affiliate owner. I opened my gym in 2007. Started it in a park. Was there for several months. Grew a little following. Then was in a performing arts center for about a year and a half. Continued to grow the gym organically. We finally got our own space in 2010, and we've expanded a couple times, not multiple locations, but kind of our own we have two facilities across the street from each other and a second floor on one of them. So just slow organic growth. And, my mindset when I found CrossFit, it was just this like absolute gem. It was exactly what I had been looking for because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to create my own vision. But, with CrossFit, like one is like the methodology, once I really began to dive into it, I was like, holy shit, I don't know what I don't know. I thought I knew a lot about fitness, and it's like, I'm still in the dark here, So that was extremely eye-opening. I've talked about this before. I had a degree in exercise science, a 4-year degree in kinesiology and nutrition. And I left that 4-year degree with, what do I do with people? I have all these different kind of skills or information pockets, but there's no methodology. There's no cohesive endpoint to what they taught me over 4 years. And I had learned so much more in the CrossFit Journal and the videos than I did over a 4-year degree in exercise science.
People think you're lying when you say that, by the way. Anyone who says that, it sounds like it cannot be true.
Because it's like a lot of exercise science programs are like, they either kind of go towards research or application or kind of neither really. And it's just, again, it's watered down. There's no, like I said, there's no clear endpoint for how to work with people in my experience.
Just
and I've talked to a lot of people.
Application.
Exactly. So CrossFit, like when I found the journals, like, this is how you coach people. This is how you do progressions. This is the point of CrossFit. So it's like, I think that like physiology is not arbitrary, but all movement disciplines are essentially arbitrary, whether it's sport, CrossFit, yoga, dance, these are all basically, we create rules around movement and express that movement. But I think the beauty of CrossFit is like, to me, it's like, it's the every person's fitness, because the goal is to be generally well-rounded, which is what I think 98% of the population would benefit most from. And, with CrossFit, you can get the average person to a medium, high, intermediate level of strength, endurance, capacity, more than anyone will ever need to survive and be a useful citizen, family member, friend, neighbor, etc. And it's like this utilitarian fitness. It's like, so it just speaks to me ideologically so much. So I'm very, very honored to be able to bring that to the masses. But so I've been around for 16 years. I'm the sole owner of CrossFit South Brooklyn. I always have been. That was also, in terms of, there's the freedom of the affiliation model. There's also the freedom of being an independent sole operator, that I don't have to really bargain, negotiate, compromise any of my visions, goals, values. Obviously, I work with a team, and I take their input very seriously. But it's much easier when, in my opinion, when there's one captain on the boat to kind of make the final decision, like, we're going left, and come hell or high water.
When you started, I've got a couple questions I bet Boz knows the answer to, but I don't know your story anywhere near as well as he does. When you started in the park outside, which, by the way, I'm from New England myself, Massachusetts, and having 4 seasons, that depending upon when you're out there in the park, that's quite an arduous task that you were engaged in. Were you otherwise employed at that point in time, and did it start as a side hustle? And if so, at what stage during this 16 or 17-year journey did it transition to, this is my full-time gig that's supporting my life?
So I I got my degree in exercise science in Pennsylvania, in Westchester University. And I was working at a YMCA there while I was getting my degree. I worked in a speed school for the very small transition time where I lived with my parents before I moved to the city. But I moved to the city with my goal of opening my affiliate. So I was working at an Equinox, and I was there for maybe a year and a half or so. And Equinox provided for me, that was my, that I pay my rent and food. And then I started the gym 1 day a week and just kept reinvesting, growing it organically. Until I got to the point where the gym was making enough for me to quit Equinox, where I was able to take, I went to 2 days at CFSBK and 5 days at Equinox, and then 3 and 4, and then 3 and, and it just kind of gradually titrated myself off of big box fitness so that this would support me. And then I replicated that same process with several first part-time, then full-time employees over the years. But, I've talked about this a little bit before, but like my whole thing was like, no investors, no debt, no partners, no loans, just bootstrap this thing, homemade equipment, homemade sandbags, jump ropes, reinvest everything, every penny I can into this thing. until it takes off. And it's been 16 years. And again, it's been no debt, no investors, no nothing.
Which is so impressive for anyone who's not, a closet real estate nerd or whatnot, to pull that off with the rental and lease prices in South Brooklyn is astonishing to me. And you've got a really massive space now as well, right? And you've been able to still pull that off just from no outside help.
Yeah, our facility is currently, it's a little over 11,000 square feet. We have two 5,000 square foot facilities across the street from each other, and then a 1,200 square foot, we call it the annex, where we do like physical therapy, massage therapy, and some other stuff, and have a little sun deck area too.
I mean, that's so impressive to me that that just validates, I'm sure it was the actual opposite of easy if I was profoundly hard and challenging. But if you can pull it off in that environment with those lease rates and the whole 9 yards, I tend to think you can pull it off darn near anywhere.
You can make it in this city, Pat.
Yeah, right?
I leveraged the methodology and my personality. And,
what do you mean by that?
I think that the methodology of CrossFit is effective, fun, efficient, all those great things. It does what it says it does. My personality being that, like, even if we were in the park and it was fucking cold and dirty, I was showing up like we had a fucking, 20,000 square foot facility. People were honored to be there. Like, I was like, no, like I would not apologize for what we were doing, or the circumstances. I just, fake it till you make it. And just kept being that, like, cool, this is it.
Man, if I can pause on that for a second, I think that's so important for new trainers and affiliate owners to understand that you may have aspirations towards the mega facility someday or the shiny new equipment or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, those are really just kind of window dressings for the more important elements underneath. And if you can't see that and convey that in such a just stoked to be there type of way, maybe you're not as invested in this thing as you thought you were. I think that's something that's missed all the time in the modern era, where people have this kind of like, well, when I just get that shiny new squat rack, then I'll have a program that's worth being proud of. It's like, no, man, you do not. It's great to have. And those types of goals, I think, are absolutely awesome to have something to shoot for in that way. But man, by no means do they dictate your level of success. And nor are they prerequisites to both getting people fitter in a meaningful way and your long-term success. So I think that's so cool and such, like I said, a small thing, but I think it's very, very important that no matter where you're starting, like, you got to take pride in that for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, even like when we had very modest, we were in the Lyceum, which is the Performing Arts Center, we had very limited equipment, but I was like, oh my God, I'm able to get 2 barbells. And, you might have a class of 10 people. Like, how are we going to use these 2 barbells? We're doing a circuit and we're changing the weights and whatever. But like, people come on that journey with you. You make them part of that evolution of the gym, and they take ownership and pride in every little advancement along the way. If you bring people on that journey. So that was a big part of it too, is like making people feel invested emotionally in the program, in the success of the gym, and making them feel like this is us. This is a team effort. And, they're the ones paying the money, but then they see like, oh, look, I'm paying and we're getting new stuff. We added a class. You said earlier about some of the stuff that I think back about the things that I did because I was not a franchise. I was not beholden to anybody else. So like, again, the gym was 1 day a week. In the beginning, it was 1 class, 1 day a week. In the beginning, it was just me sitting alone in the park for the most part. And eventually, like, some people started to trickle in. But then it was, a couple days a week, et cetera. But then for many years, like we had Fridays and Tuesdays were rest days for the gym. So we were just closed for like years. And like, people wanted to work out. And I'm like, no, I'm tired. Take a rest day. We also had, for the first at least 4 years, I would say, we had an honor system membership it was a little pencil pouch on the desk in front of the gym, and it said, please leave $20. And that was it. And it was like, people, I didn't check, I didn't sit there and count the money, at the end of class and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying this is good business tactics. Right. But things that were like, I think, it was just like, I didn't care. I'm here. I'm having fun. I'm having a great time. I love training these people, and I have inherent trust in people. And every now and again, someone would come by and be like, yo, I don't think I paid you in like 2 months. And I was like, I don't know, give me $200. I'm like, okay, cool, bet. Here you go. Here's some money. But people, and I had so many people like be like, that was so endearing to be in New York City. And I would walk into a business and like, there's like an honor system membership. And it's just this dude. And people were like, it's David. And it's like the handful of coaches that he has. Like, I'm not going to steal from them, you know? And it's like kind of almost that small town vibe recreated in New York City. Now we're too big to have that now, obviously, but it still has that same sentiment and feeling, I think, in a lot of ways, that it is like a community gym.
Well, Pat, I was just going to say, I think so much of that comes back to the way that you framed it and your attitude towards it, because, you know, I remember training in that old Lyceum, and, you know, it wasn't easy. You had to move equipment into certain parts of the building at certain times so other people could use the space. It was a shared space. You didn't have exclusive access to it. You know, you couldn't drop weights. There were all sorts of kind of rules that you were following that I think most people looking at the modern affiliate lens would be like, wow, what a burden. But the fact that you were able to frame this as like, no, man, this is what we do, and this is how we're doing it. And it's a challenge to be overcome. And like you said, you get people buying into that. All of a sudden that becomes a unifying factor instead of something that is just burdensome. So like that is such a, I don't know, that's very commendable, because I do think that a lot of people nowadays, they look so much at the things that could be better and they can't get past that. And that becomes all consuming, as opposed to like, well, look at what we do have and what we can do and how we can make this like collectively just a cool experience. And I mean, I think you're a testament to the power of that.
Yeah, you'll find your people. You know, some people will look like, no fucking way, dude.
Yep.
Because like the Lyceum had no heat. So in the winter, we had these illegal propane tanks that literally people would wear their jackets the whole class, and they would stand around the propane heaters warming their hands up between their sets. And in the summer, it was brutally hot in there. It was just like a steam box. And I had like, for the whole time we were there, whenever it would rain, I would get anxiety because I knew that I had to show up to the gym 1 to 2 hours early just to figure out where all the water was going to be and how to wipe it down and how much of a nightmare it was. Like, so it was just like, if it was raining, okay, I just got to replay my whole day and go in there a couple hours early to see what the damage is going to be. But you know, and those are like those are the war stories that you look back on fondly. But you get through it, and you just like, it's the beauty of the journey, you know, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
The question I have for you, and I don't know if there's a neatly wrapped up answer, because I'm sure it's not formulaic, but you know, I think a lot of people can understand how you start with that crew, right? You're outside, you're in the elements. We're literally like, we're working out, but we're also working together because we've got some conditions that aren't ideal. And through that becomes this bonding and camaraderie and some laughter, and you know, you make fun of the hardships, and there's tremendous value there. And then you fast forward over a decade later, the membership base has grown exponentially, the square footage has grown, there's wonderful things like HVAC systems, you know, you got, you know, and you somehow want to hold on to whatever that magical little feeling, that essence was back then. How in the world does that not get lost when everything around you 10x's?
I think because it's incremental, the growth has been so incremental, and it's like, you know, over 16 years, we have a lot of members who've been with us this whole ride. And then, you know, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13, like a lot of members have been with us for a long time. But it's also sort of like, it's the transference of culture where like wherever you start an affiliate, if you have a long time affiliate, the people there are like, oh, these are the base people. This is the crew. And eventually life happens. People move, things change, priorities change, people come, people go. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, like those, like my 10 people who were my people, maybe they're not around, or it's a different crew or whatever it is. But I think like the through line is, what is the culture that the staff and the ownership has preserved in terms of the demeanor by which people engage each other, the nature of the gym. That stuff it starts top down, but it's also shepherded by the members. So it's like, there's never like a clear like cut, like suddenly everything's different. It's a very gradual progression. Yes, people come and people will go, but throughout those waves of people, they're going to transmit the culture within themselves, if that makes sense.
It does, but how do you do that? I mean, if a new coach wants a job at your facility, is there, is that culture and attitude and their presence and their values and however you put parameters on that or define it or judge it or whatever you want to say so that it fits what you want there? Have you found some meaningful, repeatable metric to do that? Do they get a briefing? Like what is it? Or are they just around for a while and you get a good sense of them because you've been doing this for so long? Because that's a huge deal. Like anybody can teach the deadlift, but for some reason, this coach makes me want to go to their class and this one doesn't.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a couple things. One is leading by example. So it's like I'm still very much in the thick of the gym, and like I still coach a lot of classes and I enjoy coaching classes. And I think people see that that's the kind of the standard and the expectation for how things run. So people will live up to that. I think that again, like it goes both ways. Like the members have certain expectations for how class runs. Like it's very symbiotic between the coaches and the members. The members have an expectation about how they engage with each other, how the class runs. And that makes things even easier for that newer coach to come in because they're coming into an already kind of pre-built, pre-cooked system that they're like, oh, cool. Like everyone kind of seems to know what they're doing. And I've had a lot of, I've had new coaches, a few new coaches over the years, since COVID in particular, where they're just like, who were not prior members, were not homegrown. Prior to 2020, the vast majority of my coaches were homegrown. They were members who I identified and, whatever, right. Met someone. I was like, ooh, this is the right person. They have the right personality. There's 3 metrics for a good coach, in my opinion. Professional, fun, and kind. And if you can hit those 3 marks, you're good to go. You're professional. You take pride in your craft. You have professional boundaries. You want to be part of the team. You want to be part of the greater mission of the gym. You want to put your best foot forward, bring your best version of yourself to class. Kindness is incredibly important in our industry in terms of making people feel comfortable, because we always say like the tip of the spear, that the heavy hitters, they'll be fine. It's the other 95% of the people who are scared shitless walking into your gym day one, who are going to keep your business open for 16 years. And if you can meet those people with empathy and kindness and compassion and make them feel safe in an otherwise scary seeming environment, they're going to be bought in, because like that's a huge turn for people, is like they see this thing they're intimidated by, and then all of a sudden it becomes, transformative and definitive, as Glassman has talked about. And it's like, holy shit, I'm one of these people now too. I never thought I was going to be this person. And the bridge to that is the kindness of the staff towards those individuals. And the last thing is fun. Like if you go, are people laughing? Are people having a good time? Can that coach curate a fun, welcoming environment where people are letting loose and cracking jokes and engaging with each other? So those 3 things: professional, kind, fun. If you hit those 3 marks, you're good to go.
Well, so what you know about Pat, I would say, which of those 2 do you think he... I was going to say, that was my joke. I was like, well, Pat's got 2 of those. So
I'll let you guess decide
which ones. But to expand on that a little bit, so I think that's really cool on the individual kind of coach level a little bit. But one thing I've observed about your gym, and I don't know if you think about it in this way, but from the outside, somewhat perspective looking in, it seems like you approach your facility not just as a place for where people get fitter, but like truly as a community center, because you have all sorts of kind of programs that layer on top of your base offerings. Like I know for a while, I don't know if you still do, but you had like a pregnant moms thing. And like periodically you have fundraisers at the gym, and then periodically you have like social events at the gym. So it kind of transcends beyond this, hey, this is just what we do, is show up and do kettlebell swings, into this is really a meeting place for like-minded people. And we want to try to keep that going in as many different ways as possible. Is that a conscious decision? And if so, like, how do you develop that?
The events that we have, and a lot of gyms do events, right? And like events are it's the cherry on top of the cake. Cake, it's a cherry on top.
It's a cherry.
It's a cherry. We have just this Saturday, we have Fight Gone Bad. That's our biggest annual fundraiser. We've been doing that since 2009, when it used to be the thing with sports grants, and there was the bigger CrossFit Fight Gone Bad competition. We kept it going. We've raised this year, we just hit $21,000 nice. For the organization that we're raising money for. So like we do those things. Those are I always say the community and the culture is built every single day in class. Every single class is its own culture and opportunity to create connections. And you have to foster those connections every single day, every single class, in terms of how you get people to engage with each other, how you make the programming and what we do accessible to them, how they get bought into the culture of the gym. And then the events, like I think a lot of gyms, they think, oh, we're just going to throw an event and that's going to create community. I see events as a celebration of an existing community, right? Like it doesn't go the other way around. And like, yes, those events are opportunities for more people to engage, to create deeper connections to the gym, to see what the gym's sort of priorities and ethics are in terms of who we raise money for and what kind of programs we support and things like that. And that gives people a better kind of emotional buy-in to the gym as well. But again, those are extensions of what happens every single day in the class. If it's not happening in the class, you're not magically going to develop community because you're doing a fundraiser. You know, it has to be the day in, day out question of the day, engaging people, talking to people, how they get greeted, are people hanging out at the front desk, all that kind of stuff that is more important for developing culture than events are. But events are super important. They're landmark. They're, you know, landmark events throughout the year that we have. We have a couple like major holidays, you know, so it's like a culture has a holiday, culturally significant holidays. We've created those. So we have a handful, about 5 per year, that are like, these are our hallmark events and everyone looks forward to them. And there's expectations around what we do and how they run and how they're fun. But again, that's not how we primarily build community and culture. Those are celebrations of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. It's cool framing.
I realized suddenly we've been having so much fun chatting that we've been chatting like over 30 minutes. And I know that we've got some stuff that we really want to get to, which is some just, I don't know if lessons learned is the right way to say it, but getting back to that whole independent gym owner mindset that you've had the freedom to experiment and establish some things that you think work very well that I don't think maybe a lot of affiliate owners have had at the forefront of their mind. So I'd love to kind of take a turn and make sure that you get ample time to dive into those. So do you have an idea where we should start on those, Boz, or David? Whatever.
Yeah, I do. I think, David, one of the things you mentioned was we have this really cool technology with CrossFit, and, how that gets applied is, I think, different in a lot of ways. You can have somebody who just finds the website, they're self-motivated, they're going to do this in the garage and be happy for the rest of their life just following that path. You're going to have people that want to come into the affiliate. You're going to have people that want to coach it. You're going to have this huge mix. You're going to have people that want to be competitive with it. And I think one of the things that you mentioned while we were off camera was that, there's a different application for each one of those people. And it's not necessarily going to look uniform, even though at its heart, you've got the space methodology. So I'm really curious to hear your take on some of the unique class practices that you've developed. I know you talked about this concept of the floater day as one example, so what are some of the things in application that you've figured out along the way that really make the methodology work in this group setting?
Yeah, so I'm very much focused on the user experience for the members in terms of, and one of the things too is like, I think this is good context for this, is that when you've been around for 16 years or any length of time, you hopefully develop very intelligent members who understand training, who understand when to push, when to pull, how to round out their training week, decisions they can make to take control of their own fitness in the context of your gym, etc. So, versus the gym that's brand new and everyone's a beginner and just tell me what to do. And yes, we're going to tell people what to do, etc. But there are certain things built into our group classes that allow people a little bit of freedom to kind of make it a little more modular, I'd say. So a couple things. Yeah, like you mentioned, there's this Venn diagram of CrossFit, the methodology, the base methodology applied to an individual, CrossFit, the methodology as a sport, and then that same methodology, things we can do within the affiliate programming model. Because with the affiliate programming model, you're programming 7 days a week, right? Which you're not doing for most, even baseline.com, 3 on, 1 off, 5 on, 2, whatever you want to do, So there's unique challenges within that. You also have the challenges of you don't control which days people are coming. If they're coming twice a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 2 days a week. So how can you accommodate for those individuals who are coming varying days? And there's other like methods and things that I've seen to try to like, build a system around that. But often I find them to be way too complicated to be useful, where the members need to be really bought in on some high level, understanding of, oh, I need to do this on this day, that on that day, etc. That's just like too cumbersome for the average person who just wants to be fit. So it has to be effective, but it also has to be efficient, like simple for people to implement. They can just show up and be like, what am I doing today? Cool, got it. So I got a bunch of different things that we do. So one thing is, I'll start with the floater days since you mentioned that. So actually, I'll take a step back. We typically program 8 to 12 week cycles in our group class programming. The overall goal year round is always GPP. We're not training for particular attributes necessarily, or like trying to peak for the open or a certain advantage or things like that. It's just baseline CrossFit, well-rounded GPP. But there will be within particular cycles a bias, right? So maybe we have certain lifts that we see a little bit more of, or certain skills that we see a little bit more of. And that's to the ends of administrating education and coaching and teaching to members. So if they know they're going to see certain lifts on certain days, in my experience, people become a lot more confident with those lifts. They can prioritize them. They can see a little bit more linear development with particular lifts. They get more frequency. Whereas if it was, randomized, they might not have opportunities. Oh, I didn't snatch for the last 4.5 weeks just because I didn't happen to come on the right day. Mm-hmm. So what we do, and this is the big thing, is educating the members, where like we'll do an 8-week cycle and we'll say, here's the days that we're going to have. So on Mondays, we're going to back squat. On Tuesdays, we're going to snatch. On Thursdays, we're going to do bench press, blah, blah, blah. And there's not every day is codified to a certain movement. And certainly that's not all we're doing, but that'll be kind of the bias. And maybe there is like an 8-week squat progression that we play with. Or maybe it's just, you're going to see heavy squatting patterns on Monday. That doesn't mean it's like a linear progression or anything like that, but you might be squat cleaning and then front squatting and then heavy back squats. And then it's a run back squat, thing like that. So number one, that allows people who have limited opportunities to go to your gym to be able to kind of figure out which days they want to work with, which days they want to, bias a little bit more. And that's worked really well because basically we educate our members like, hey, there's a plan. We have this, kind of long-term plan. You're still going to get well-rounded fitness. You're still going to come in. Every day is going to be, for the most part, a total body day. We're going to be pushing, pulling, running, grunting, all that great stuff. But there is some kind of anchoring points within these programming days that you can use to be a little bit more intelligent about your schedule. The other thing is we built in floater days. So on Fridays and Sundays, the class comes in, we warm up together, and then basically like we'll have an option of usually 3 to 5 lifts that are the prior day's lift or the next couple days lifts. It's like, hey, on Monday, we back squatted heavy triples. On Wednesday, maybe it was I'm looking at the program right now. Today, the workout is heavy shoulder presses coupled with assault bike sprints, right? So on that Friday, we're not necessarily doing that press bike sprint workout, but they have the opportunity to press, right? Mm-hmm. So basically people are able to come in and be like, oh, you know what? Like I haven't done pull-ups this week, or I haven't done squatting this week. I just didn't happen to come in on the day. So it gives them the autonomy to choose which day rounds out their training week best. And that's what I would want. If I was a group class member, sometimes you're like, oh, fuck, like I missed the squat day 2 weeks in a row, or the days that we happen to squat, and I'm just kind of shit out of luck, until this thing comes back around, and I'm not really sure when it's going to come back around. So again, this allows our members to basically have, some modularity within the programming, so they can come in and they can make a decision about what they want to do. The coach will, guide them through, hey, here's the options. And then we offer, if you want to do a superset, like a bodyweight dumbbell thing, go for it. So you want to do some back squats and you want to do some dumbbell rows, great. You want to do some chin ups and you want to do some deadlifts, awesome. There'll be a set time frame. Usually it's 25 minutes that they have to do that. The coach is going around helping everybody. And then we come back together for a conditioning piece or assistance work or skill work or whatever it is on the back end. So it still maintains that cohesive class kind of atmosphere and vibe. So we have that on Fridays and Sundays, and it's easy to administer. It relieves programming stress of having 7 novel days of programming every day, year in, year out. You have 2 days built in where it's like, listen, most people are not coming 7 days a week, if anybody is. So this can accommodate for that, where we don't have to like completely reinvent the wheel every day and figure out what we're going to do with these people. It gives them autonomy. It gives them more ownership of their programming and what they're doing, because like, you'll have to think critically about, what have I done this week? What have I not done? And we'll put in the notes like, hey, these are the options. Tomorrow, if you're coming in, we have heavy squat cleans and sprints. So they know, oh, okay, cool. If I come tomorrow, don't do the heavy cleans today. And they know what the plan is ahead of time, so they can make those decisions. And my members have loved it. Like, I've just gotten the most positive feedback, especially from our veteran members who, are a little more savvy now, and they have their own biases and goals and things they want to work on. And, they have that autonomy, and they're good to go on that. So that's been a really, in my opinion, elegant solution to one of the main problems that you encounter with group class programming. Again, it's like the 7 days a week of novel workouts, people coming on different days, people missing things if they want to do. And it's a really easy solution. We also do that sometimes within a Metcon. So I'll give you an example of tomorrow's workout. And we've done this kind of thematically for the last couple of weeks for a few days, but it's basically like tomorrow's workout is the Metcon, 20 strict pull-ups, run 800 meters, 15 strict pull-ups, run 800 meters, 10 strict pull-ups. But there's a caveat there that like, hey, if you came on Monday when we did a bunch of pull-ups, right, and this is your next day coming back to the gym, you could do a dumbbell push press, or you can do double volume push-ups. Super easy for that coach to administer that programming. Super easy for all those members to look at the workout and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I did a bunch of pull-ups on Monday. I would really love to get some push-ups in because I haven't done that at all this week. And 3, 2, 1, go. And you all go, and you preserve the stimulus, you preserve the time frame. Super easy to run, super easy for members to make the right decision for themselves.
I love it. Now I want to push back a little bit here on, you've mentioned it twice now that this is easy. And I think it's easy for you because you have developed this inherently over so much time. But I think what it speaks to is a flexibility of mindset that unfortunately a lot of people don't have. And excuse me, I think that happens in 2 ways. Like basically what you've described is almost like a hybrid open gym model. And I'll give you and the listeners some hot takes. I think open gyms are usually a waste of time. I think they're a waste of time for the gym. I think that most people that engage in open gyms, in my observation, are there wasting huge amounts of time and not really accomplishing much. They kind of fall into that bucket, or they fall into this bucket where they think that they are at a higher level than maybe they are, and they need to come in and do all this extra work because that's what the competitors do. And in my experience and observation, open gyms typically don't get people where they think they need to be and are often not really useful for the gym owner. That's my opinion. And so what I think is really cool in this is that you can preserve a bit of that open gym flavor, but with enough guidance that everybody still, A, has that great class experience that's hard to replicate with an open gym model. And B, gives them enough guideline that there's not going to be that kind of wandering that you see with a totally open model. So I think that's really cool. But I will say, I think it takes a ton of skill on the trainer's part to be able to both have tight control at certain points throughout the class and then open up that control to allow members to do what they're going to do. I think that's not easy. And I think that's something that can't just be kind of glossed over. So that's my pushback there. I love the concept. I think it's really great. But
I think it's phenomenal. I love it. I haven't heard it before. I dig it. I think it's super cool. And I agree with what you said. It's probably challenging to pull off, but you've been doing it so well and integrated for so long that it's running. But I think what it also speaks to is the fact that you can pull that off at South Brooklyn means that, something you touched on earlier, over the course of weeks, months, and years, you have not only developed your athletes' physical fitness and capacity, but you have also developed what I like to call their strength and conditioning IQ. Like they get it, and so you could explain this to them and like, that makes sense. I know what I did a couple of days ago. Oh, you're telling me this is coming up tomorrow? Roger that. It makes sense that I'm going to modify it in this way. So the fact that you're not only improving their fitness, but their strength and conditioning IQ out there at South Brooklyn, absolutely, I think that's phenomenal. And I hope more gyms start to increase both those areas of their members. And the only other thing that I will say is anyone who's in the area should go tomorrow, because if there is two things that everyone needs more of, in my opinion, it is strict pull-ups and 800-meter runs. And I mean that. The fact that you got a workout that has those two elements, and you're not even going to give them some little cookie with a barbell in it. There's no barbell in it, and you're doing that. That's a beautiful workout. You know, you're obviously doing things right. You're making people sharp between the ears. So I like that a lot. I think that's real cool.
Well, I agree. And the second thing I wanted to note on just kind of the flexibility of mindset there is, and commendable that you've developed this within your members and your staff, is this idea that what's written on paper isn't written in stone. And I feel like so many times people get really locked into, oh, well, it says strict pull-ups and running. Well, I mean, that's what it has to be. Why would we do anything that deviates from that plan?
It's the only workout that will work that day.
Exactly. Yeah. And if we don't do that, then somehow, we're not going to get more fit. So I think developing that kind of flexibility of mindset is so important and so cool that that's just kind of baked into the recipe. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think that to push back on Adrian's prior comments, which I disagree with, one is I don't like complicated shit. If it sounds complicated, maybe I'm explaining it incorrectly. It's very easy to run for the coach. It's very, very, very easy. And again, so 5 out of 7 days, this is the workout. We're all doing the same thing. Again, there might be a little bit of built-in modularity, and that modularity is, it's not like person A is going to snatch person B, like for the Metcon.
Yeah.
Person A might be doing strict chin-ups. Person B might be doing push-ups. Person C might be doing kettlebell swings. I don't know. Like, it's any coach with their soul can run that workout with a little modification. Same time frame, etc. The floater strength stuff, again, just refers to stuff we've already done that week. So, it's really easy to explain, hey, on Mondays we do this, on Tuesdays we do that, on Thursdays we do this. People say, oh, I didn't come on Mondays. Cool, we're doing that. Doing this tomorrow. Easy. The whiteboard brief is no longer than a typical, whiteboard brief for that segment. And it's like 20 minutes. If you have any questions, go. And it's rare that anyone's like, I really don't know what to do. 95% of the time people are like, cool, bet, I got this. I know exactly what I want to do.
To refine my statement a little bit more, I guess all I was trying to say is that I think developing that flexibility within the coaching mindset can be difficult, and it shows a lot of maturity, at least from what I've observed. Like the newer coach, I believe, can sometimes be rigid in their approach, and breaking away from that. Not that the skill set isn't there to coach multiple things within the course of a session or to understand like how to plug and play like that, but just allowing the flexibility that this can and should be a great option, I think is something that takes time for people to recognize. That's all I'm trying to say.
We also have, just very briefly touching on Open Gym, we have a unique scenario because we have 2 facilities which are physically separated by a street across the street from each other. One is dedicated to group class. One is Open Gym all day. And the people doing Open Gym are they're not like going too hard, crazy. They want to be competitive. It's mostly just people who have been doing this for a long time or who transferred to our gym following some certain program, or they have a coach and they're just looking for somewhere with the equipment to get in what they want to get done. And we have this unique opportunity for them to we have Open Gym 6 a.m. to 8:30. Go for it. Be an adult. Go do your workout.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any different like garage gym fitness. You could say that logic of like, well, someone in their garage just doing it on their own. Are they really going to push themselves? Are they going to make intelligent choices? There's no pushback on that. It's the same thing at a gym. We just don't have garages in New York, so we can't do that.
It's like a collective garage gym.
And it's also a nice thing for members, because most of our group class members don't do Open Gym. They do. Yeah. The group class primarily, that kind of suits their needs. But we have this flexibility for Open Gym. So when you have that person, it's like, hey, I've been coming for X, years. I really don't have my pull-ups yet. I want to get my pull-ups in. And it's like, oh, well, when are you coming next? Can you squeeze it in here or there? Like they just have a lot of freedom to be like, yeah, come early, stay late. We have room. Go do your thing. So it just creates opportunities for people to hit the things they want to hit, even if it's outside of the context of a group class. We're unique in that in our spatial situation that we have this giant space that's dedicated to that. But I found that to be, especially again for a long-term gym, because I don't think my program, I do the group press programming. I don't think my programming is the end all be all and it's going to, check every box that everyone wants to hit. You're going to have people who have biases and interests. And I guarantee if you two were members of my gym, you would occasionally be like, I don't want to do this workout. I want to do something, or like, I want to work on this for a little bit.
Sure.
Cool. More power to you.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of dovetails nicely into this idea of developing a mature member. And I think, you're in a unique position where you have so many long-term members. And that's something that I think every affiliate at a certain age has to grapple with is, okay, we have this influx of new people. They are, just drinking from the fire hose, to use the old analogy. They're going to be fired up because it's all new and they're, seeing these PRs. But you have to also service those members that are 5 to 7 years deep. And they're going to have different motivations at that point. They're going to have a different understanding of what they're doing. How do you still offer something to them? And it sounds like you've solved that problem really nicely. But the question I guess I have in there is, in your mind, what does it mean to be a mature member? And what do you hope for that member that's with you long term? Like what kind of skill set should they have developed after being part of your gym for, 5, 6, 7 years that transcends just a faster Fran time or like a bigger back squat?
I think that the common culture of my gym has always been based around using CrossFit not for sport, but for longevity, for fitness, for just general enhancement. I was just on a podcast with MDF and James Hobart and stuff. We were talking about this a little bit, that like a lot of the early adopters of CrossFit got in because we were super hard-headed, hard charging, fucking burn it down mentality. And, you've been around this long enough. Everyone's like, I just want to feel good. Like, yeah, I'm just going to drop the hammer. I'm going to work hard. But, and I've heard, Pat talk about, hey, I don't do overhead squats, whatever it is, things like you make those modifications as a mature athlete. But the things that you do when you push, when you pull back, when you just check the box and get a workout in, and it's not a big deal. So I think that the culture of our gym has always been very much that mindset. It's been very much, and we've even like had people, not so much lately, but more so in the early days, we'd have people come in and be like, this needs to be harder. I'm like, we'll just go somewhere else. Like there's another gym down the street, go there. Like, why are we doing like 30-minute AMRAPs like every day? And why isn't like we're getting crushed every day? I'm like, because that's not what we do here, and it's going to be hard. As hard as you make it. But there's the like, it happens at the whiteboard, it happens on the blog, it happens in how we communicate with members to make intelligent decisions about their training, about their intensity, about their movement, things like that. So for me, like an intelligent member is someone who can protect themselves, who can make intelligent decisions about their training, who doesn't need their handheld for everything. And again, it's like, I think in the early days, I took more ownership of like what was happening with every single member doing like an open gym type situation. And now I'm like, people are adults, they're fine. And it hasn't been a problem. Like, it's not like I go into open gym, I'm just like, oh, what are these people doing? Like, everyone's half squatting and just like, looks like, it's not at all the issue. People are I think training intelligently and taking care of themselves and doing what they want. And we're opening a lot of doors for people to express their fitness, whether it's the group class, open gym, diapers and dumbbells, Fit 55, etc. But again, it's like, it comes down to like creating intelligent members, and instilling, I think, values that in training that lead themselves to longevity and sustainability within this.
Well, I love your number one. I think there's kind of two things baked into that. Number one is your insistence on things need to be simple. I could not agree more. And I think that at a certain novice level, people want to try to create complexity where maybe it doesn't need to be, either to try to promote their own necessity, like you need me because I'm the expert sort of thing, or just because they feel like that's the only way it can be valid. Is it can't possibly be that simple to just like push one day and pull the next day, So like, I love your insistence on that, and that you got the chops to back that up. That's so refreshing. And then second, I think that another kind of trap of the novice coach is that they fear members becoming more autonomous because they think it will somehow detract from the value of the coach. When I think what it seems like your whole affiliate experience is that the more that you push these people to be autonomous and be involved and understand their own path, the more likely they are to continue on that path with you. Like that seems to be the story here. It's like you wouldn't have this focus on keeping people engaged in their own journey, and also have them be members for 10 plus years if that wasn't the case. So that's really, I think, a strong indicator to younger coaches that like you should not fear people developing their own way through this thing. And you should be a shepherd of that, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's like, having done this as long as I have, we've had a lot of members, you know, leave, move to new cities, etc., and come back, and like hundreds and hundreds of people who have been like, this, my experience at your gym shaped my understanding of fitness. Like it took me from someone who was like, I should probably work out, to like, this is an elemental part of my life, and I have these values and things, and like, you know, maybe they go in a different direction with their fitness or whatever it is, but like it was elemental in their journey, in their learning, and they're like, how do I approach training intelligently and hard, etc. Like I talked about, you know, sustainability and all that stuff, and movement quality. That's all super, super, super important. And I just want to add in there, like, but we do need intelligent threshold tests, like pushing. You need to push people. And I am notorious for going to somebody and taking their 35 dumbbell, putting it back on the rack, and grabbing the 50 and laying it at their feet and being like, do it. Or like standing above someone, be like, one more rep. You're fine. One more rep. Let's go. You know, you have to push people. You have to teach people.
David was just in town for my birthday a couple weeks back, and we did a workout in my garage. He pushed me to use a weight that I was maybe not so stoked on. And so there you go. One more person that you just pushed in. Yeah, I was better for it. So yes.
Yeah. And again, I
was going to say that's one of what's probably many, but one of many separators between a good coach and a great coach, right? Is that a great coach, through experience or intuition or whatever, knows when the member needs, you know, a kind word and a bit of support, and maybe even to be reined back a bit. And they know when that same member actually needs a kick in the backside and be like, you're going to do this because I know that you can, so grab it and get it done, you know. And that's being able to walk both sides of that fence. And you're under a facility that cares about the members and has intelligent programming, and you have a community, and you're improving the strength and conditioning IQ of your members. Like, you're going to be met with long-term success, would be my guess right there.
I've said before, my kindness is a trap. It pushes you into a way, and you're like, there's a hill. But you know, I would never ask someone to do something that I didn't genuinely believe, in my professional experience, is appropriate and they're capable of. And that's the most empowering thing you can do for somebody. Like I talked about, acceptance and challenge. Those two levers in people's lives are huge. If you accept someone for who they are and then challenge them to get better, so people can walk in and be like, wherever I'm at is okay right now. And now someone's pushing me outside of my comfort zone in a gentle way, not shoving me, you know, down the flight of stairs, but they're holding my hand like, oh, this is happening. Oh, we're doing this, you know, and that's, I think that's critical for people's physical and psychological development with this. I do have some other stuff with programming stuff. I don't know we're on time.
Well, let's make sure we get there.
Just to touch on that real quick, I think that's the important thing that is in that. So your ability to push people when necessary. From everything that you've said, it sounds like it's really predicated on the trust that you built up with them. And so when that time comes that you say, hey, man, here's the 50-pounder, it's not coming out of left field, and they're going to be willing to do it because you've built up this trust with them that you have their best interests in mind. It's not just like anybody can be a hard ass, right? Like that doesn't push people in the right way. But when you've established this relationship that runs so deeply, they are going to take that challenge because they know that you've got that you have their back. So anyway.
Yeah. If you have a very cavalier attitude, like at the whiteboard and like what you're like with people are going to discredit you. They're like, oh, this person doesn't really get my needs or where I'm at, etc. But if you're like really coming to it from a perspective of like longevity, kind, etc. So when you do grab that heavier dumbbell, they're like, okay, this person thinks I can do this. Like, I trust this person,
right?
Because
They
they're not on the
believe in me.
whiteboard be like, everyone's gonna get crushed today, like that kind of stuff.
Well, let's keep going with
Well,
the independent gym owner creative application of the methodology to share with folks here.
So
Here we
something
go.
that we do too is we don't have Rx's weights in our workouts. And I don't think this. I think a lot of gyms do something like
You do
this. We've been
just
doing
RX plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does anybody get fitter?
Yeah, exactly.
So a couple of things. Like, I think Rx's are essential for obviously competitive CrossFit and for benchmarking. They're, you need to have some kind of baseline metric for what you're doing. I find in the day-to-day affiliate programming, it can become a little bit more of a distraction than it is necessarily helpful. So what we typically do is we will have a range, like 4 weights. So for example, it's a heavy deadlift. It might be like, all right, y'all, we're going to do, here's the deadlift. You're going to do all the same things. You're going to say, this should be unbroken. This should be two to 3 sets per round. This should be XYZ. Like, you're going to describe the stimulus that you want them to get. And then you'll have like 275, 225, 185, 155. And then there's always less. You can go ... less than. And that gives people like a range of about 4 weights that they can usually look at and begin to infer, oh, I think I'm about around in that category. And it takes away this whole thing of like, the guys do 225, the women do 185 or 155, whatever it is. It's an expectation that I think, again, for competitive CrossFit is absolutely necessary, but for day-to-day affiliate programming, it takes off this weight of like, I'm supposed to do this weight. And I find that people make more intelligent decisions. They don't feel like they're less than. I'm not doing the real workout because I'm not doing this thing at 95 pounds when, this guy weighs, 115 pounds and he's brand new, whatever. Like, it just takes some of those elements out of it that I think end up being more distracting. What I say is the people who care the most about it will know exactly what the weight they're going to use. The people who actually are like, want to RX things and want to care about, like, I got to do this at 275. They can look at that workout, have a conversation with the coach and be like, cool, 275. But the other people are not like, oh, I have to get to 275 eventually. Like, maybe you will, maybe you won't. And, when we started removing RXs, a lot of people thanked us. They're like, oh, it kind of takes some stress off my plate. Like, I felt like I was not doing real CrossFit because I could never do RXs. And like, we don't have like RX next. It's the workout. You're doing the workout. It's your stimulus for the day. It's your dosage. And I got 20 different people and they might be doing 20, that's going to exaggerate, but let's just say 20 different versions, expressions of the workout. And again, we're going to give you guidance about, this should be here, there. But then also, like, you have people like the RX Plus. It's like, you look at that person, you should do bar muscle ups today. Just fucking go for it. Why not? You can do it.
Yeah.
And someone else, it's like, let's just do jumping pull up, whatever it is. But they don't feel like, I'm not doing the real thing. And like, I think people who are in the thick of this are like, oh, that's not a big deal. We all are going to make our best decisions. But for that person who's in the class, taking guidance, reading the whiteboard, they have those anxieties and preconceived notions about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Are they living up to a certain standard or not? Like, this is the workout. And it's like, it's just a workout. Just do what makes sense for you. And you always arrive to that same endpoint. You're still going to describe what the stimulus is. You're still going to get people to a weight or a version of that movement that allows them to express the workout for the stimulus that you're looking for. Like we do a lot of times, like for row bike, we'll have, 2 options, whether it's calories or meters, and one is 100% and the other is 80%. That 80% does not mean this is the women's weight. It's just 2 options. It's like, hey, this row should take you between 1:45 and 2:15, somewhere in that hemisphere. If you're not hitting the, X calories in that time frame, drop back to the other one. So it's not like a gendered thing. It's just different options, that people can choose from. And they can be like, cool, I'm doing this version. I'm doing that version. I'm not doing the less than version. There's multiple options on the board that are all the legitimate, carbon copy sealed version of that workout. And that's the version I'm doing today. Great. So I find that to be helpful in taking people off the cliff sometimes, who are like, well, it says 95, so I really want to try 95 today. And sometimes that's appropriate. And sometimes like, yeah, let's go for it. You might get crushed by it. And that's a great way to develop strength, is to do metcons that are a little bit too heavy. I went through that myself, and I definitely push people through that as well. But again, it just, when applying this to Gen Pop, in my opinion, it makes things a lot easier, and it makes the conversations a lot more accessible to members.
Well, I hope that what you're talking about, I'm in full agreement with, and I hope that everybody gets there, even if they take a different path to get there. And I think all three of us, having been around as long as we've been around, hear what you're saying, and it's easy for us to forget the knuckleheads that we were 15 years ago. We were like, yeah, of course I'm going to make a good decision. Why would I make a dumb decision? Like, I'm going to preserve the stimulus. I don't care if I scale and modify. Who am I trying to impress? Like, I'm a grown up. That's 15 years ago. It was Rx, and that meant a lot. And I would put my shoulders in bad positions and agony to do however many Nancy's that I never should have done, with horrifically caved in shoulders, because dang it, that's the prescribed workout. And that is, I'm come hell or high water. That's what I'm doing. Total idiocy when I look back on it, right? And, so whether you get to that point of understanding that I can preserve the stimulus through different paths, or I can modify something and still get wonderfully fit, or the loading on the bar is when the programmer came up with the workout based upon what happened yesterday and last week and tomorrow. This is the general recommendation that makes a lot of sense, but you've got leeway in a strike zone in there, to make it fit for you. Now, it's easy for me to forget. I'm like, yeah, of course. But when I think back, if I'm really honest, I was that person that would have really benefited from what you're saying right there. So I think you're doing a lot of people a good service.
Yeah, like I said, it has to be hard still. And I've definitely told people you should do X. Like, I think that's too heavy. Just do it. I don't care if it takes you 5 minutes longer than everybody else. Like, you're going to develop, strength is not compartmentalized in the strength workout, the deadlift 1-1-1-1. You can get stronger doing Fran if that barbell's heavy enough.
100%.
And even if it takes you 9 minutes, like, sometimes you got to grind through it. So there's a balance there. There's a balance of making this accessible, but also not being like, we need to make everything safe and easy for everybody. Like, it's got to be hard. And you got to know when to push people beyond their comfort zone and be like, you're doing the double unders today, and I don't care if you're sitting there missing for 3 minutes. Like, do them, just struggle through it, because they're not going to magically show up. They're not going to show up in your sleep.
Yeah. Well, that's so another, I think this is another, I keep coming back to this idea of flexibility of mindset, but I think it's so important. And I think it keeps coming back thematically. I feel that what you're talking about, the members can get fixated on this Rx. I think that's absolutely true. I also think that coaches can get fixated on this idea of the perfect stimulus, where it's like you just described, okay, hey, sometimes you do bite off a little more than you can chew intentionally, and you are going to be the last one done. And that's exactly what was supposed to happen today. And that was correct. It doesn't matter that you didn't hit this intended stimulus. I think that word gets thrown around sometimes in a really productive way, sure. But I also think that it can become this rigid, fixed target where you're like, well, wait a minute, hold on. That's not at all a wasted effort to take something on that you couldn't do previously. And yes, so what? It took you a little longer than everybody else. So again, that all kind of boils back to what seems like the ability to be flexible within the understanding of what you want out of your members. So to me, that's a huge takeaway for anybody listening is, have some principles, but understand the flexible ways that you can reach those principles.
Exactly. I mean, I did the same thing when I first started CrossFit. I was like, oh, this is the Rx. And I'm not a large person. I'm 5'6". Right now I'm walking around 140-ish, low 140s. I'm pretty light.
Jacked 140. You've been putting in work lately.
You see those thirst traps online? No, but I put my head to the grindstone, and it was just like, oh, it's 3:15 today, and I wouldn't, if I was coaching myself, I'd be like, David, let's try 225 for a little bit first. But again, you learn the hard way, so you find that balance that yes, you have to train intelligently. Yes, you want to feel better after the workout, after you recovered, then you went into it. You don't want to drag yourself through things. But yeah, you gotta grind. You're not going to get better unless you are uncomfortable.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think those two should ever be confused, right? Modifying a workout doesn't mean you made it quote unquote easier. It's just hopefully you prevented somebody from making an unintelligent decision for them. And then you're still going to push hard, like if that's what you got going on that day. Like modification of a loading or a movement or whatever doesn't have to be that you modify the effort in which you are going to apply to that workout.
Mm-hmm. Like with wall ball, I retired the 20-pound med ball. I fucking, of all the things in CrossFit, that 20-pound med ball for me is like, I feel like I'm just getting fucking beat up. And like when I do the 14 or the 16, I'm like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. I can actually do like sets of 20 if I need to and get through workouts, you know, how they're intended to be. But other times I'm like, I'm scaling up. I'm going to go heavier than, you know, whatever the RX is plus on that barbell or the gymnastics movement. So, you know, strike while the iron's hot, make those decisions. But again, it's this conversation that's constantly happening in the gym to members where you're having these pragmatic conversations about, again, when to push, when to pull, when to make, what's the intelligent decision, even if it, you know, doesn't seem like this, not, I don't want to say safe, but it seems like the conservative decision to make. Like, no, go for it. You're going to, you might blow up and we might make a mistake and we might take some weight off round 3 if we cross that bridge. Lesson learned. Data point for you, data point for me. You know, I'm not going to let you do something unsafe to yourself, but I'm not going to inhibit your progress and your development.
Yeah. That wall ball example is a great one too, because I mean, of all the movements where the load is completely arbitrary and just an artifice of the culture that was kind of put on all of us, like that 20 pounds, there's no reason that became the de facto standard. It just is what happened. And so, you know, it's funny that something that I would say there's a little more grounding when we're talking about barbell movements, that you can kind of see where some of those weights matched up with most people at a average level of fitness would be challenged by a particular weight. But there's such an arbitrary nature to that wall ball, but it does kind of illustrate the fact that so much of this is also relatively arbitrary and just based on what has happened in the past and doesn't necessarily part cleanly to an individual. So anyway, rambling a little bit there, but yeah, I like that. David, how much more time do you have? I feel like you,
well, we don't want to dominate your time here,
but yeah.
Anything else mission critical that we want to talk about?
I don't know if I'd say it's mission critical. I'd say like one thing that I say is that might be of useful to coaches and affiliate owners is in terms of programming, and it's like not a super hard science to this, but like how I construct a week typically. So like when I have like my little programming document, you know, Monday through Sunday, and then on the left, I've got this like chart of like how much horizontal pressing am I doing? How much horizontal pulling? How much vertical pressing? How much vertical pulling? How much single leg? How much hinge extension? How much rowing, running, biking? So it's basically like fundamental joint actions, modalities, carries, gymnastics holds. I'm looking at it now. Time domain, short, medium, long, for quality and skill work. And I try to have each of those boxes checked off about twice per week so that the average member has at least 2 opportunities to do some horizontal. We're going to be doing some push-ups on Saturday, and on Tuesday, there's going to be bench press, right? So it allows, and it also helps with programming. It makes programming a little bit easier when you're programming 7 days a week. Like, oh shit, we haven't carried in a while, or oh, we've done no hinge flexion, so we need to get some toes to bars and some tuck ups in there somewhere. Oh man, we haven't really done a lot of single leg this week. Let's begin to work that into some weighted step ups in this Metcon on Saturday. So I think that does a really good job of developing joint balance throughout the week. And it also is a nice guide for programming because you begin to kind of parcel down. And, you know, if you program for an affiliate or for multiple days per week, we always know those last few days are like, fuck, I've done everything. Like, what am I going to do next? Or like you feel kind of like your creativity is beginning to kind of dwindle a little bit. So it's easy, like, oh, what haven't I done yet? So having a little bit of a rubric, and it's not like, again, a hard science to it where every week it's exactly perfect, but it does give me guidance and keep some transparency and like, oh, we've done, you know, so you can look at something like, oh shit, we've gone overhead 4 times this week. Like, you know, and sometimes redundancy is fine. Sometimes it's like, yeah, we went overhead yesterday and in 2 days, we're going to go overhead again. You'll be fine. But just overall, it helps kind of keep things in check. And again, the goal is to try to hit each movement plane modality twice a week if we can. And that ends up to being a pretty well-rounded week that anybody coming into your gym multiple times are going to get a nice smorgasbord of movements that they get in to keep that balance.
I think a couple times a week on those things that you mentioned is a very good metric, a very good baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that having enough framework to get you started. It kind of avoids that blank slate problem that you can have when you sit down and say, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And then on the other end, kind of to extend what you were saying about how it offers a little bit of guidance as you're working your way through the week. I'm sure it also offers a little bit of guidance from week to week when you say, okay, we couldn't get this element in twice. So that's the obvious starting point for day one next week. So it kind of perpetuates itself. That's cool.
Yeah, because again, I like simple. I like easy.
Yeah.
I don't like to overcomplicate things.
Yep.
And this, to me, is a very easy way to, like, within a second, look over a week and be like, what have we not done? What are we missing? What are we doing too much of? What can I modulate a little bit? Where can I add in some of this floater stuff that's going to make sense for the workout so that I can give people the option if, like, we did X, Y, Z on Monday, Tuesday, and I know we're doing X, Y, Z on Thursday, Friday. On Wednesday, cool. I can kind of give them a couple options and they can make their best decision. And I can create a very modular workout that's going to be like the running and the pull-up workout where person A might do chin-ups, person B might do push-ups or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. I love that emphasis on simplicity. I'll come back to that again. Man. I think it's so important. And I think that it truly is the mark of, I mean, you could probably say this in many different disciplines, but somebody who has a really deep understanding is that they're always trying to strip away the unnecessary and try to reach a point of clarity. Whereas the people that are less developed or maybe less confident in what they truly have to offer, they're going to try to obfuscate things a little bit to try to create that air of like, no, you don't get it. This is really complex. Like I said before, you need me because it's so complex, instead of the people that are really comfortable with what they're offering. It's like, no. It's really simple. Let me clarify for you. I think that's such a great approach. And in my opinion, at its base, that was what I thought was so revolutionary about CrossFit in the early days, was it was very combatively, hey, the fitness industry is bloated and most of it's a waste of time. Cut away all that crap. Here are the things that are simple that you can focus on that really drive the needle. And so that resonates with me a ton.
Yeah, for sure.
David, man, we appreciate your time, appreciate your knowledge, and I hope that whether people own an affiliate or not, but they walked away from something with this episode. So genuinely, big thanks, man.
Yeah, and if you're curious, we still post all our workouts on cfsbk.com. People feel free to steal them, augment them, take them. Again, you might look at them and be like, this is stupid. I don't like that. That's fine. I never tell people what to do. I just tell people what we do and why we think it works. So steal what you can and make it better.
Very cool. And so is that the best way for people to, find you? Where's your gym on Instagram and the website and all that good stuff?
Instagram, we're at CFSBK. We still do the old school blog every day for 16 years.
Wow.
16 plus years now.
Amazing.
Every single day, a brand new post with a picture of something going on at the gym, the workout, and some information about an event or a helpful video or something related to the workout or whatever we have. And it's been a long project to do that for 16 years, every single day.
You say that again. It's impressive.
It's an archive of my gym, though. It is definitely the scrapbook and the history of our gym. And I'm incredibly grateful that we have kept it up for this long. And this is a side conversation. I know we're wrapping up. Basically, you can go on Beyond the Whiteboard because we use Beyond the Whiteboard for our workout tracking as well. But if you want to know what the workout is, you have to go to cfsbk.com. So the members are habituated to go there. Then they see the picture of somebody else. Oh, there's a nutrition seminar this week. Oh, we're doing Fight on Dad. Oh, we're doing this. We're doing that. We're doing a coach drive. It becomes this digital watering hole that you habituate people to look at. And that's another way to build culture, is to have a coherent stream where you're reflecting the community back to them.
I love it, brother. I love it. So once again, much appreciated. As we always say at the end of these, anybody out there looking to, help support the show, go to very.ram.com. Check out the cool cycles and programs that we got there. David mentioned strict pull-ups in a workout earlier. We got a strict pull-up thing to help get you first there. And if you've got a thought, an idea for a show, a topic, a guest you'd like to have on or whatnot, find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel. Post your thoughts into the comments. You've got ideas in alignment to what David has. Are you doing something different at your gym? Let's share those ideas so everybody grows kind of together and we establish some best practices. So for Adrian Bosman and David Osorio, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.